You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristadoulou, and the Chicago Bears are up next in my free agency prediction series. I'll dive into some of the players I think the Bears need to go ahead and re-sign or expect to re-sign, on top of some positional targets and some players I would either like to see them go after and or maybe expect to see them go after. The Bears are currently sitting on $48.3 million in cap space, so plenty of money to work with here. So let me know, Bears fans, in the comment section down below, what would you like to see from the Bears? Who do you want to see them re-sign? All of that, would love to hear your discussion. But starting with the re-signings, we'll begin with one of the more obvious ones here, but one that I really want to hammer home the point of, and that's going to be cornerback Jaylon Johnson. He's going to be 25 during next season. Spotrac estimates he's going to be making an average annual of something along the lines of about $15 million, maybe a little bit more. He had 4 interceptions last year, one of them being a pick 6. He had a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 36 tackles, a completion percentage of only 55.2% when the ball was coming his way. He allowed only 2 passing touchdowns the entire season. As I said, this one should go without saying, but I do feel like in some realms, when I look around, there are some people that are worried maybe Chicago doesn't opt to re-sign him. I think that would be insane. I don't think that's going to happen. Johnson is your homegrown cornerback number 1. He stood up this year and announced his presence to the NFL, and this is one of those things that every single team would love to have. They draft a guy that becomes the guy to have in your secondary for the years forward, and I think in this passing league, you want to be able to keep a guy like that around. You're looking at a 4, maybe 5-year deal, something along those lines. You load up the guarantees. Do not let some cornerback needy team come in and swoop away your best guy in your secondary, I would say, at this very stage of the Chicago Bears. So go ahead, bring him back. I would love to see Jaylon Johnson staying up there in the Windy City for the foreseeable future. Next player I'm going to look at here, we're going to focus up on the interior of the defensive line, and I'm looking at defensive tackle Justin Jones. He's going to be 28 next season. Average annual, something along the lines of, and this is more of an estimate based off of just the numbers I've been looking at around through research, $6 to $8 million per year feels like a good sweet spot for him, something in that range there. He had 49 tackles this past season, 10 of them being for a loss. He had 4.5 sacks, 4 batted passes, and 22 pressures, which is actually a career high by like a mile. Big piece on the interior defensive line, and part of why the Bears were able to boast one of the best run defenses in the NFL. I think he's a really solid guy to have over there in the interior, and I'm expecting something like a 3-year extension type of contract. I don't think that you want to disrupt what was brewing with that defensive front this past season once you brought Montez Sweat into the fold, and I do think Chris Jones was a part of that. I think everyone along that defensive front really benefited from the arrival of Montez Sweat, and if you can keep as much of that group together as possible so that they can continue to grow and flourish together, I think you'd be making a smart decision there. So keeping Chris Jones around, I do think, is a good idea for Chicago. And then this one here, and I'm curious to hear what you all say, because I do think it comes down to how much it's going to cost and what you may think the Chicago Bears are targeting as far as free agents are concerned, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I would not be opposed to seeing the Chicago Bears keep Yannick Ngakoue for at least another season. I think you could probably bring him back a little bit less than what you had to pay for him last offseason. So I think you could get him something along the lines of like $6 or $7 million for a year. Maybe you give him a ton of guarantees, or hell, even just like guarantee a whole $6 million to him, or a whole 7, something along those lines where it's not a ton of money and it's not a long-term commitment. But in 13 games, he only had 4 sacks. He had 6 tackles for loss as well. But the way I see Yannick Ngakoue, he has been a model for consistency throughout the majority of his career. This was the first season that he played anything less than 15 games and had less than 8 sacks. Get him for that 1-year deal. He's coming off of a broken ankle injury as well, but one that you can come back from. I think Yannick Ngakoue still has plenty of juice left in the tank, and it's unfortunate that we basically lost what would have been a fantastic pairing between Sweat and Ngakoue, where if those two had more time to get it going together, I think you could have been looking at one of the more fearsome pass rushing duos on the edge in the NFL. So I'd be very curious to see him come back. Now, I know I've seen some people say they should shoot for the stars and go and sign one of the premier edge rushers in free agency, and I understand that, but you already just spent a ton of money in a trade and research, I guess, extension of Montez Sweat. Like, are you going to go ahead and just double down on 2 premier contracts at pass rusher and then not have a ton of money to work elsewhere along the team? Like, I don't think you're just 1 pass rusher away from really being a team that could contend in the NFC. I think you need a few more things. So this is more of an idea of, yes, you're going after a guy you already had on your roster, maybe didn't quite perform to the level that you wanted, but prior to the Montez Sweat trade, you weren't really working with a ton as far as the front was concerned, as far as pass rushing. So obviously the key factor here is Montez Sweat, but I would love to see a motivated Yannick Ngakoue come back trying to earn every dollar possible after this injury ended his season. And I think him, Sweat, Jones, as I mentioned earlier, could form a really disruptive unit up front when it comes to opponents' passing games. Now, beyond that, we'll shift gears. We'll look at some of the positional targets and things that I want to see the Bears go after, or I expect to see the Bears go after here. And again, I'm not diving into every single re-signing possible here, just giving just a few thoughts here and there, and then opening it up for you all to let me know what you want to see. As far as positional targets are concerned, first one that I have highlighted here, I'm looking at the safety position, and no, it has nothing to do with Jaquan Brisker. I actually really like him. I'm a very big fan of him, and I've been a fan of him since before he got into the NFL. We're looking at the Eddie Jackson situation. With an $18.1 million cap hit, I do think, and this is also something that I've read in other places as well, there is a possibility that we see Eddie Jackson getting cut and or maybe traded away, but I think a cut is more likely because I don't know if anyone's going to want to trade for somebody who has, a cap hit of, I guess 13.1 because it's only a $5 million dead cap hit for the Bears should they opt to get rid of him, unless he restructures his contract. So that is kind of the big if in the situation. Is he willing to restructure? And if not, do you wind up seeing the Bears cut him to make some room? Because then if you do that, then we could talk more about maybe going after one of the elite pass rushers that are potentially available, because it opens up a lot more for you to be able to do money-wise. Now, when you look at the free safety class that we have coming in this year, as far as free agency is concerned, there is a lot that you can do. A lot of guys with a lot of talent that are all like in their mid-20s. I'm talking Jordan Whitehead, Xavier McKinney, Kyle Duggar, Brandon Jones, Jordan Fuller, Ashton Davis, Geno Stone, Julian Blackmon, all guys in their mid-20s that are talented, ascending players, all guys that could potentially hit the free agency market. I just listed off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different people that could be looking for new homes next season. Odds are at least 2 to 3 of those guys are going to hit the free agent market and are guys that you could bring in for probably less than that $18.1 million cap hit that, not Jaquan Brisker, Eddie Jackson is currently eating up. So definitely something worth keeping an eye on here, but I wouldn't be opposed to seeing them pair maybe a younger guy who's ascending to go with Jaquan Brisker on the back end of your defense. Next position I'm going to look at here, we're going to look at wide receiver. And no, I'm not thinking go get like a number 1 guy. I'm not talking T. Higgins. I'm not talking, Odell Beckham, I guess, is a potential guy. Mike Evans is a potential guy. Michael Pittman, no. I'm looking more so at a solid number 3 guy or maybe like a slot guy, something like that along those lines. I want to see an addition at wide receiver. And everywhere that I seem to look around, a lot of people seem to be moving off of the Darnell Mooney freight train, which I felt like was steamrolling a couple of years ago. But now it feels like a lot of people want to see the Bears allow him to walk and look elsewhere. When you look at some of the like tier 2 wide receivers that are potentially available, guys you could pair with DJ Moore and say a rookie wide receiver 1 that you go after in the first round of this year's draft, guys like Marquise Brown, Gabe Davis, DJ Chark, Rashid Shaheed, Curtis Samuel. There are all very viable options at wide receiver that you could add to bolster and even upgrade your wide receiver room and to help along with, again, a draftee that you're getting in the first round. This is not about getting a number 1 guy for me. I don't think that's the best route for the Chicago Bears right now, especially with a potential of a rookie quarterback coming in, depending on which side of the whole Justin Fields conversation you're on here. I would like to see them add some depth, make things easier for a rookie wide receiver, because I would like to see Chicago go and get their true number one guy on a cheap rookie deal for the next 4 years and have an even deeper wide receiver room to work with, should they opt to draft a new quarterback or to help enhance the wide receiver room that they're trying to surround around Justin Fields. And then the third positional target and final one that I have highlighted here, and this one seems like one that everyone is agreeing on, because all the research I did, I felt like this position just kept coming up over and over and over again, and I saw a lot of the same names pop up too as people that they want to see targeted. Center. Offensive line definitely needs some work. This is one of those where you're probably seeing the offensive line addressed a bit in free agency and a bit in the draft as well. It seems like everyone, though, would like to see a new center come into town, and there are two guys that really stick out to me that could potentially hit the free agent market here, and that's going to be Connor Williams from Miami and Andre James from Las Vegas. Connor Williams definitely feels like a more likely scenario, just considering some of the guys they have to work on re-signing this offseason, coupled with just like future contracts projected as well. I think that Connor Williams could potentially be an odd man out, being one of the more expensive options on their offensive line. As for Andre James, that one's more up in the air. I wouldn't be shocked to see Las Vegas keep him around, but also wouldn't be shocked to see Las Vegas ultimately maybe move on from him with a new head coach in Antonio Pierce, or I guess returning head coach now, but a regime shift, obviously. We could see some more roster shuffling than anticipated, so there is a potential that maybe Andre James doesn't make the cut as they kind of start to work through, bring in new coaches and whatnot, and they kind of restructure how everything looks over there. So those are a couple of guys that I think going after would not be a bad idea, and part of the reason why I'm stressing the center position is because me personally, the center is like your quarterback for the offensive line. They are the guy responsible for getting the entire protection set up and ready to go, and I think that regardless if the quarterback is either Justin Fields or maybe in a hypothetical scenario where the Bears go and grab, maybe Caleb Williams or maybe Drake May or whoever it is that they end up liking, whatever the quarterback ends up being, I think it helps to have a center that your quarterback can trust in. And then double on top of that, I think it really helps to have a established veteran center who's been successful the last few years already that can help ease either Justin Fields or an incoming rookie into the league. Center is one of those things that I feel like kind of gets forgotten about, but the play always starts with the football in the center's hand. A low snap, miscommunication, whether it's between the snap or miscommunication in terms of getting the protection out to the rest of the offensive line, it all starts with the center. And to have a veteran guy who's established and ready to go for whether it's Justin Fields next year or the rookie that you have coming in because you decide to take a quarterback at number one, whatever the situation may be, it is never a bad idea to go veteran established at the center position. I think it's one of those things that is very underrated and long forgotten about at times. But those are some positions, some players I would like to see re-signed. Bears fans, again, I open it up to you. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you want to see Chicago do as far as free agency is concerned and re-signings are concerned? I would love to hear your thoughts and discuss with you all in that comment section down below. But that is it for me. As always, if you made it to the end, greatly appreciate you. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.